So, I understand where you guys are coming from, and I know you actually having seen me switching engines over and over and over again, from me using Gdevelop, from me using Construct, from me using GameMaker Engine, and now you're seeing me back here again in Godot. And I know what you guys are saying, and I can hear you guys from a mile away. When are you going to stick to one game engine and just go with it, Planetary? You've been switching game engines so many times, you could have actually just stuck to one game engine and just go with it. And to answer that question, well, you're not me. But yes, to answer the question more in a professional manner, yes, I'm actually going to be sticking to one game engine this time, and that's going to be Godot. So you're not reading the title wrong, you're actually seeing the thumbnails as it is. This is devlog number 9, where I've actually made a sudden switch for Cyberverse being a GameMaker Engine project to being a Godot game engine project. And the reason behind it, I'll actually explain to you in short amount of details to get you up to speed. So, to start things off, we're going to go back to the 16th of September 2025, where I was actually plateauing a bit with GameMaker Engine. I didn't understand where I needed to go, and looking through all the events and also the scripting that I have actually done for each event, it was actually becoming a bit of a problem, and it's becoming a massive problem to actually multitask and look for different scripts for different events to actually do some debugging and actually figure out where it needs to improve. Due to the fact that GameMaker Engine, yes, it is a very good GameMaker engine, but it's just all about trying to find each of the lines of coding and finding those errors when it's in all separate events that you need to find. And it does become a bit of an issue to actually work a way around it, especially when it comes down to global scripting, especially for me with inputs. That was a massive problem, but it was working. But the problem was I was plateauing. I was trying to figure out how to actually make the switch and the door to actually activate to one another, which it does work, but it didn't work how I wanted it to be. It was a bit of a problem there. But after when I decided to say, well, there has to be a simple game engine out there that can actually make things far more simpler. That's when I decided to actually put the project on hold and start to look at different game engines or game engines that I have actually done before. And when I looked at Godot, I realized I actually do have some knowledge back on Godot. I do understand that Python Lua is in GDScript. GDScript is easy to understand and easy to get into, and it can be more easy to put Cyberverse back together from using the Godot game engine. And that's what I did. I decided to go back to Godot and actually relearn how to use Godot as it should be. And thanks to many tutorials that I have actually gone through throughout the 20th of September, I was able to find many good tutorials like Breakies, thanks for him for making a simple platform tutorial on Godot and actually giving me a more understanding of how nodes and how the language is constructed, and also understanding that there are templates for the nodes like the character body 2D that can actually be reconstructed in the programming language for easy use, and also to lay out more roadwork to give you guys an idea of what kind of character you want to make. It became more easy to actually understand. And once I've actually finished the tutorial, I decided to look at other tutorials, and also yes, using ChatGPT to give me a bit of a leg up on some certain features that I was trying to implement from GameMaker Engine to Godot, and also making varied jumps. Once I've actually put it together, I've actually realized that the character design, mostly the player and the enemy AI, was not very distinctive. It was more generic. It didn't stand out as much. And thanks to Bizmaster, my good mate from the pixel art community, and also other people from his community as well, actually gave me a lowdown that my character design was too generic. It wasn't too easy to stand out, and I actually happily take that. And I decided to give my characters a bit of a rework. And I'm actually happy to actually do that, giving everything from the GUI, my characters' designs, and also yet the grounds and the backgrounds and items that players will come across, a whole redesign work. And looking at it, I'm happy that a sprite was there to actually give the NES palette to actually make sure it actually stands out. And I was thinking of making a project that is more of an NES era. So with the NES palette, it was actually easy to redesign the characters, as you can see now. You can tell there's a massive difference from me using 16 Bidle, which I've used for my old design, and me using the NES palette that I've actually made for the redesign. You can actually tell a huge distinctive difference between the two, especially for the player, the ranger, and also yet the block enemy that you see now, PC, and the new enemy that I've actually made a while back, Springy. It was such a great feeling to actually go through the whole rework and whole redesign of the characters to give the characters a more distinctive look, especially with the GUI, the pause menu, and the main menu, to give you guys an idea what kind of game you are playing. But once it comes down to finishing the redesigning of the sprites, it was also coming down to redesigning the programming for the player and also for the AIs, because back then, once I was in Game Maker Engine, I've only got PC working, but I didn't get the Ranger to work just yet, and that was the problem where I got stuck. But here and now in Godot Engine, I was able to put the Ranger together very easily, and also with PC as well. PC was a simple back and forth kind of AI, so kind of like your original Goomba or Red Koopa Trooper, so they don't walk off cliff. Ranger, on the other hand, I was getting the idea of that kind of Mega Man vibe, because you're playing as robots. Well, robots do shoot, and they do shoot sometimes, both the player and the Ranger. So once I've actually got the Ranger to work as it needed to be, to walk left and right, it was coming down to making sure that the projectile was being shoot. And that's when the enum state had to come in for both the player and also the AI. More importantly, the Ranger. Once I've decided to get the Ranger to work, I have to make sure that it stops in its tracks once it sees the player and is in range. And once the player is in range of the Ranger will shoot and stop on its tracks. Though yes, the animation does seem a little bit shorty with the indication of, hey, Ranger's about to shoot, you need to get out of the way. It still managed to work as it is, but I think with the Ranger flashing white and red for its eyes and its lights, it does help out a little bit more better. But the main problem came around when it came to making the switch and door combination, which in turn actually helped me out with the key and exit door combination. And to start things off with the key and with the switch and the door, I actually had to look for a certain tutorial to help me out with that one. And I was actually glad to actually understand that you can actually write a code in there to say, this is connected to that, and once the switch is flicked on, the door will actually go up. And it was actually a same kind of deal with the key and the exit door. If the key is collected, the exit door will open. And that's the whole idea for the game that you're about to see right now. It's not as simple going from left to right. You have to find a certain key to activate the door, to actually exit the level and finish that particular level. That's the whole idea for it. Which, that was a great feeling to actually make sure that one was working correctly. But once it came down to debugging and doing reworking of the programming language, I've actually came to realize that there was a certain problem when it came down with the hovering mechanic. And yes, the hovering mechanic was helped thanks to ChatGPT. I know AI is not a very great source of tool to actually make certain things, but it did help me out with this particular case. But it did lead to that particular problem whenever the player was still in the air, and if the fuel gauge is empty, the player can still spam the jump button to actually make the hover gravitation active, so the player can actually slowly drop down but can still move right to left very, very fast, which that was something that I needed to fix very, very shortly and very, very quickly. And after realizing it was a state that needs to be implemented in, I decided to add a hover state into the enum, allowing the player to activate that particular state once the player is in the air and the jump button is being pressed. The state will switch over from alive to hover, and once the hover gauge is all empty, it will set the gravitation back to normal, but it'll switch the state back to being alive because the player is falling down and is still able to walk left to right, which was a very good thing to actually catch that particular problem and that particular nuisance that I didn't want anyone to catch. So at this point of time, everything is in a working pace. It's going very smoothly. I'm still working on this particular project. I'm still working throughout its testing phase to make sure that everything is working correctly and making sure everything is dusted correctly, making sure that there is no stone unturned and there is no bug left in there that I will not be able to find at some certain points. But then again, sending out an MVP project for this and hearing you guys' feedback and understanding that there is some certain bugs that are there will be easy to actually gather up and actually put together and debug from there as well. But now it all comes down to making sure that the pause menu is working correctly when the player is not dead and is not finished with the level, because I realized once the player is finished or is dead, the pause menu is still activated. So that's something I need to fix very quickly. But I'd like to say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for sticking by with me, and even sticking by with me on social media as well by looking at the updates I have actually been putting up there of the progression of Cyberverse, and also at the nooks and crannies that I have actually put together there. I'll make sure I keep up to date and show small trinkets. I'll make sure I show smaller videos on social media and on Instagram or TikTok, so you guys can actually keep up to date and actually understand where the progression is going. But here I'll make sure on YouTube I'll give you the full length story of what happened from this certain timeline up to now, and I'll make sure I'll do that. So thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for actually sticking with me to the progression of Cyberverse. It is getting there. I'm just a one-man band. I'm trying to get there as much as I can. But the most important thing, I'm just having fun and trying to have fun as much as possible. Learning how to use the Godot engine, learning how to become a better pixel artist, and also yet learning how to be a very good music producer for my project. So until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.